This is Tim Beck, CEO of SAASTEPS. We're back here today, and I've got a special guest with us, and I'm really excited for all of you to get to know him. I actually met this gentleman at Boulder Startup Week, but before I tell you the whole story, Jeremy, I would really appreciate if you could tell the people that are listening to this podcast a little bit more about you, your background, and how you kind of got to know SAASTEPS.
Sure. Yeah, it started for me back 2004, just out of the dot-com crash, which took quite a few years, but started at a company called Salesforce.com and didn't know what it was at the time, but knew I was really excited to dive into marketing. Spent about 6 years at Salesforce, and somewhere along the way, I heard of this role, customer success, and it was arguably, the first created in the cloud space for B2B solutions, and just fell in love with helping people. Getting people to scale CRM is getting people to run their go-to-market strategies. And so along that way, you start to see how big companies treat go-to-market plans. It's much more kind of wait till something bad happens from a success standpoint. So I really set off on a path and a journey to really challenge the status quo and scale customer success programs at SaaS companies. And one of the big things you realize when you start to come into startups is things are a mess, right? This isn't news to anybody. I'd come into companies to build success teams, and you couldn't see any contracts anywhere. You couldn't even find out when deals were closed. You'd have 30, 40 salesperson teams. They wouldn't even know why they closed it, what the business did. So really quickly, this behavior started to happen, which I realized years and years later, it is maybe my, my secret sauce is infrastructure and revenue operations and making sure everything works. So I found myself as not being that administrator, but overseeing a team that could look at the holistic view of customers. Yeah, and the big part of that, honestly, Tim, as you know, is iterations. Startups are all about how fast you can pivot. You've got new org structures coming in, new products, new software things. So you've got to, it's an art, really. How do you shift infrastructure and move along with what you need, but also not over-engineering and making it too complex to have your team? You want to make it nimble and straightforward and get your team's heads down and executing, not looking at 1,000 reports and getting paralyzed by all the things that someone else thinks you need to be looking at. So that's kind of a little bit about my journey. And excited when I met you guys. I was at a company called Blue Jeans Network, and we were scaling very fast. Blue Jeans was a Zoom competitor, if you will. It's the easiest way to think about it. And we were scaling the success team, the whole organization. And I think we had probably at the time 20, 30 million in recurring revenue with very large companies. But the one thing I noticed is when it came to the classic part of customer success operations, which is dealing with upsell, cross-sell, downsell. When you look at Salesforce, out of the box, you get these things called opportunities. That's for typically, new business. But at the time, it was also a great medium for us to start surfacing the upsell process, QBRs, things like that. What is our system of record that we could do that drives through these renewals? And knowing Salesforce and being a certified consultant, all these different things, and having different consultants I worked with, I didn't want to go that route of building a whole new world and dealing with all the repercussions from that in order to build this out. And so when it came to renewal automation, how do I create an upsell? Let's say it's $500 for this upsell deal. The client's got $1,000 already paying. We speak with them, we inspire them, we get them to sign on the dotted line, and we close it. Now, what happens in your CRM system? I'm sure you can go find people that know Apex code and can really develop a custom solution. But the issue that comes with that is all of the administration and maintenance that comes behind it. It becomes very, very difficult. Nothing is a silver bullet. I
It's
didn't
all
want to go that
custom.
route. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all custom. I would agree.
Didn't want to go that route, so looked all around, went on the App Exchange and found a company that just really positioned themselves as exactly what I need. Something that's built, it's native to Salesforce. They've got a support team that's focused on, that piece specifically, and they can also be very dynamic. You have two upsells. How do you merge this? What do you do to the MRR numbers?
Yeah.
What happens to contracts? Where do they fit? Where do you see it? And so that introduced my first look at SAASTEPS way back in the day, which I believe you recalled something different. But
Yeah, kinetic
that kind of
growth.
leads me to
Yep,
this point.
kinetic growth.
Kinetic growth.
Absolutely. Now, what a story you have. I mean, Jeremy, again, this is why if I recall, I actually didn't actually meet you at Boulder Startup Week. You had put a Post-it note where I just had scanned, and I've actually met with some other people, which is kind of cool. But Jeremy, you and I really bonded based on this history of just knowing where we came from. And, so then I kind of introduced you to the different things that now SaaSteps has done, where we had acquired kinetic growth. And from the things that you originally saw around renewals management, we had a company had said, well, let's take that bigger step, that broader step, and look at the whole bigger picture. And let's talk to our customers. And we've expanded a lot. And so, now from the history of where you learned about kinetic growth to where you see SaaSteps today, can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry today, which at least we feel like customization is the standardization, which I don't think is the right way of doing things. Personally believe everything should be standardized, but can you give us your perspective on this, Jeremy, just out of curiosity, given your history?
Yeah, I'm confident to speak for anybody who's seasoned and understands revenue operations and system administration. Customization has its half-life. If you've got an endless budget that you can continue to dump people into a problem, then you can probably make the argument of, yeah, no, we could build that. And then we all know how those words work. It ends up being, 9 to 12 months implementation, things breaking all over the place. And then boom, you've got one or two extra headcount or an extra OpEx expense needing to support that custom build. So when I saw you guys, it was really kind of a dream come true, because it looks like you took that, that initial value proposition that I needed with renewal automation and just hooked up rocket fuel to it. And you've got all these different types of things that are sitting under the same infrastructure that I could graduate into. So the payment plans, the processing, the way it sits under opportunities, super impressed in how far it is, and excited to start to delve into those as some of my relationships or my client relationships grow.
Love it. Yeah, this is the one thing that we've been trying to figure out, and how to educate the community, which is why, again, Jeremy, your third party, discussion here of, again, we're just two people getting to know people. I mean, I think it was a month ago, I didn't even know you, right? But you knew of kinetic growth. You knew of the company potentially that SaaSteps would maybe exist today. But now that you do know, I think standardization is something that together you and I can agree that is the right path for a lot of companies if they haven't gone through and customized everything. Because at the end of the day, companies 20 years ago didn't have the capabilities of what SaaSteps offers. And so, I think from your standpoint, being a revenue experienced person around customer success, can you give any advice to people of, what they can do to maybe think about how they can migrate to something that's more standardized versus being more customized today? Because again, I'm sure these are some of the guidances that you're giving your clients today. But can you help people understand how you would help others do it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the bad words that have been out there is looking at any software tool is the words it integrates with Salesforce. Like, there is such a broad spectrum. I mean, there's some which I call soft integrations, where you could buy a tool like a Stripe or something like that Great for finance, great for the UX for people to, but when you go and look from a go-to-market standpoint in Salesforce, you're just seeing an iframe. Like nothing connects with anything. All your revenue reporting is starting in Salesforce. So, and then you have the hard integrations leveraging the API. And still the spectrum is so broad. Like some of these integrations will bring in, and I always think of the example Typeform I just used recently, super common, everyone loves it. Try integrating that thing in with Salesforce today. It's going to bring in 4 different objects, a different field for every single question you ask. It is so overcomplicated that it kills you. So my suggestion to get back to your point is to look at the big platform plays, the people to where you have a support team that can manage an infrastructure. As you scale, is one of the other biggest mistakes in early stage growth is thinking about a year ahead. What if this does work? What are we going to need next? So SAASTEPS is great for that because there's so many more in the suite of tools that you could utilize when you get there. When you scale, you don't need to pivot your head and start looking for all of the things in the market that's the new age and that you should look into. So I would say start with platform. Also connect with the team. Don't just demo it and try it. Make sure you fully explain to these vendors what you're looking for. You guys do a great job of walking through what that environment looks like. It's all in Salesforce. It's all native. That's a big plus. So yeah.
Cool. I appreciate that feedback. I think, yeah, the one thing that we've been doing, so SAASTEPS, we acquired Kinetic Growth, and we did that March of 2021. And so we have spent the last 3 years figuring out what we have. And, standardization is really big. Generalization is really big, and simplifying complex processes, because at the end of the day, everybody is talking about AI, right? And AI is a big thing, but the reality is AI has a lot of dirty data, which is why we haven't seen these huge advancements in AI yet. OpenAI obviously has, with all the creativity that it can do with restructuring content or data, right? But to totally automate an end-to-end process, this is where, I think you can kind of see where we're trying to go towards with this, Jeremy, is that, if you have an end-to-end data model, if you have everything integrated, if it's all sitting on one platform, and more importantly, if it's all declarative, that I think is where AI can really take hold and take charge. What do you think about that? Because when you're thinking about future, Jeremy, everybody's thinking about AI, but how do we really make AI work? And again, our view is you got to have that clean, flawless data. And so, but I would also argue that if you've got clean, flawless data, maybe you don't even need AI. What's your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
AI is, the topic of everyone's opinions on it. I do agree with you. I remember, 20 years ago when BI was the
Business
big tool
intelligence.
everywhere, big data. And then AI used to be Drift, just those answering trees on a chat widget.
Yep, yep.
And now AI is here. And man, if you use it for a lot of things, it can extract data pretty quickly, but there's still a long way to go in terms of having humans involved. And I think it's requiring a lot of businesses, at least cross-functionally, to work more closely together to figure out how to leverage and how to respond to it from a go-to-market perspective. So I think still AI is coming, but you need that platform and that infrastructure to do it. Thinking that you could start, hooking up some Chat GPT or what's the new one, Claude Sonnet or
Yeah,
Sonnet,
that's
which is
right.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not practical to think that things can move that fast. You need humans involved, but the trick is to how do you streamline their involvement at the right time in the right place? That's my takes thus far.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And again, this is still an ongoing discussion. We will see where this goes. But Jeremy, this has been really a lot of fun. We hope to maybe have more conversations with you. We hope that you continue partnering with us and all of those great things. And I really appreciate just the time you spent, sharing your background and everything that you've done and where you're at even today, right? Because again, I think the world just needs more third-party advice about what they've experienced and hearing it in this fashion, I think gives people kind of a better idea of what you've experienced versus maybe what a vendor's telling people you might have experienced. So again, I really appreciate this. Is there any last things, words of wisdom that you would like to provide to the audience today?
Keep it simple. That's my firm, and that's what we focus on. Early stage growth requires a lot of iterations. You can kill people by 1,000 reports and 1,000 fields. You're just going to paralyze your momentum. But stuff like SAASTEPS, the reason why I think it's such a great partnership, and I think it's fate that you and I met, is it
I
really
couldn't
fits
agree.
within that nutshell. Keeping it simple, putting it in one spot, having one solid support team to get there, and move on and move up instead of trying to over-engineer and overcomplicate and make your revenue operations approach just more of a wrench in the system than it is something that smooths it. So, no, that's it.
Love it. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us.